Welcome to the Inspired podcast, presented by Living SISU.
I did in part because, obviously you're down 2, there's a minute left or whatever, but we've been taught on so many levels that it doesn't end until the final buzzer. So a little piece of me didn't think it was over, and I had that faith, and I think that, having that drilled into our, our systems since such an age.
No matter who you are, what sport you play, or the level you're at, we all have one thing in common. We have to overcome adversity and tough challenges. Welcome to the SISU Mindset.
Notre ami John. So John's going to be helping us out on our Inspire podcast by Living SISU podcast sometimes.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy.
We had such a great conversation right now with Jill Saulnier and Laura Stacey. Oh my God. Like we were looking at each other. We're like, we have chills.
Literally. I mean, the stories that you guys are going to listen, it's amazing. Resilience. I think the word that comes out the most is resilience. The resilience that these two athletes have is amazing. Yeah. And I think it will inspire you. Even if you're not an athlete, you'll feel inspired to be better at your
absolutely.
job.
Women's hockey, like they breathe the inspiring stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Big time. You guys should check more women hockey also, and you'll see these two athletes are just amazing.
And they told us stories about, like, we're in a pandemic. Like, how do you get motivated to get out of bed? Like, when you don't have your routine. And they were saying, like, they had these coaches that were telling them, remember your last 10 goals and then you'll be motivated. They were like, we can't even remember when our last 10 goals were because, they're in the Olympic cycle. They can't train exactly like they used to. They don't even have a league yet. And that's
But you know what? These athletes went through so much things that I think it helped them being ready for this pandemic, and you'll hear everything in the story. So, I mean, don't forget to, just check out this podcast, enjoy it, listen, re-listen it after also, because it's amazing everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, very inspiring, very SISU.
Yeah, very. Enjoy, guys.
Enjoy.
Just before we start, just a little reminder to follow Living SISU on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And go on our website, livingsisu.com, to have access to all offers by our partners for free. Remember to keep learning, get access, and activate. Talk later, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here, Jill and Laura. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Good. Yeah. Great.
It's a pleasure to have you guys. My name is John. I think it's the first time people are seeing me also. So it's a pleasure to have you guys.
Great to have John as well around the table. So our podcast is a lot about resilience and inspiration. And also, maybe right off the bat, the first question for you, when did you realize that you wanted to do your sport more seriously? Like you could start and then you could go, or you could both talk at the same time, whatever you prefer.
We'll just fight for the mic.
Yeah, exactly. So when did hockey become like more serious in your lives?
I mean, I grew up playing hockey. I grew up in a hockey family, so the skates and the sticks were always around the house. But I also played soccer, so I knew that I really kind of had to make a decision of which angle to go when I was about 15. So I ended up choosing the hockey route just because I had that passion a little bit more than soccer. But that was about the age that I really kind of committed and decided this is what I was going to do.
Thanks to 15-year-old Jill for choosing hockey.
Yeah.
Team Canada is very happy about
that. I would say my story is really similar too. I was also deciding between hockey and soccer. Same thing. I kind of started in boys hockey. Actually, my parents put me in figure skates and I hated it. I sat on the ice and cried. And so I knew I wanted to play with the boys across the way to play hockey just because it looked way more fun than what I was doing in my figure skates. And so somehow I convinced them. And so I think I always had that passion and that excitement to play hockey versus figure skating or other sports. But like Jill said, soccer was also a sport I really loved and was really passionate about. And so I would say it was the same around high school when I had to make that decision of which one I wanted to pursue more seriously. And then kind of when colleges and the national team started kind of popping into my head, seeing that opportunity arise was kind of the moment I was like, let's do this. Let's go for it. Let's kind of go all in versus just play to play or play for fun. And I think that's kind of what what changed it, especially when I made that transition to only playing one sport. That's kind of when I went forward and kind of wanted to start chasing that dream that I had when I was a little kid.
Is it me or like figure skates are the least comfortable thing to put on your feet ever? Not that skates are comfortable, but just like figure skates is like the worst. Like once you go hockey skates, you never go back. I feel.
There's a saying that says it takes at least 6 weeks to get comfortable in your figure skating skates. I mean, I don't know why, but my girlfriend is a figure skating coach, and she's telling me when her students needs to change skates, lose a season. I mean, forget your competition, forget forget it, because it's so tough to get comfortable in it, because you have to make a lot of spin in the air, and then you have to go back right in this perfect
spot,
angle, perfect spot, so if you're not used to these skates, it kills
so
you.
good.
I definitely didn't make it that long.
Yeah.
no triple axels.
So thanks to 15-year-old Jill, and thanks to figure skates not being comfortable for Laura. Yay.
Thank you so much for this. But I have my question for you will be, what was did you guys had a moment or a revelation that told you, you know what? I want to play hockey. Was there a story or something that happened, someone you saw on TV, or a saying that pop up into your head and make you say, you know what?
This is what I want to do.
This is what I want to do exactly.
Yeah, I actually did have an exact moment, like you're saying, when I watched the girls, the national team in 2002 on TV. And I think that a lot of girls parallel that feeling. I can hear Stace like exhaling because I know it's probably going to be a similar answer. But I think that was a big moment for not only, the little girls watching and dreaming to be there, but just women's sports as a whole and the exposure there. I think that was really, really huge, and an opportunity and a chance for women's hockey to come really to the forefront because it was such an exciting game. So for me, it was watching the girls come back and win that and watch them with their medals on the blue line. And that was also, a moment for me that was like, okay, that's where I want to
go there.
Yeah.
We're definitely a similar generation because I have the exact same answer. But I kind of mentioned before, like I was in my figure skates. And my first moment of like, whoa, I want to be in playing hockey is when I walked by the other rinks in the arena when I was going to the figure skating rink, and I saw all the little boys getting to play with their sticks and their pucks, and there was no girls out on their ice, but for some reason that's where I wanted to be. So I think that was my first moment where I was like, that looks way more fun. That's something that it's fast, it's fun. They're playing a game, whereas I'm just kind of out here wearing a fancy outfit and skating. And so that was the team philosophy. And so I think that was my first moment, like, whoa, that's something I want to do. And then like Jill said, I think that second moment where it was like, whoa, maybe it's not just me. There are other girls, females, women who do this as well. And hey, this is a possibility. Maybe one day I could have the chance to stand on that blue line and win an Olympic gold medal. And I think that was 2002. And seeing them, like, I still remember Cassie Campbell receiving her gold medal on that blue line. It's like that moment where it's like, whoa, this is bigger than I thought it was. There's more to hockey. Possible. Exactly. It's possible. And it's not just the little boys and the men who get to experience hockey at its best. And it is possible, and there is more to it. I think that's what opened my eyes.
You know what I'm realizing is that I think we need more kind of representation, because what propelled you? Is it right?
Yeah.
Propelled? Yeah. What propels you in the hockey world was seeing one of women winning something, seeing on TV women winning a gold medal and be like, wow, it's possible. So
it puts a seed, like,
exactly.
In your mind.
It puts something in your mind, and you're like, okay, I can do that too. So I'm pretty sure if there's two women saying the same thing right now, probably there's a few more. There's a few more saying the same thing right now. So it's really important to hear your stories, but also to see you guys on TV or see your major events so that you can inspire other people.
I completely agree. I think that's one of the big things that our generation of women's or female hockey players are fighting for right now is the whole idea of if you can see it, you can believe it. If you can see it, you can dream it. And I think we were not necessarily as fortunate. The only chance we had was the Olympic gold medal game where that was the only women's hockey game shown on TV.
Yeah, once every 4 years.
Exactly. And so I think our goal as female hockey players now is to make that more available, make little girls not only have the chance to see their role models or female athletes play on TV once every 4 years, but to see them on a general basis, to see what their life is like, to see them play in a professional hockey league in the stands, in the stadium, and get that experience. I to be honest, I wish I could have seen that, and I wish my family and my parents could have been able to bring me there, because I know they would have loved to be a part of that. And so if we can do that for 1, 2, hundreds of little girls now, I think that would be a success.
You're talking about being role models just by being on the ice. Who are your models, your inspiration in hockey or in your personal life?
From a hockey standpoint, like Stacey said, I remember watching Cass Campbell growing up as well. And, we're very fortunate because she's so intertwined with the game continuously, especially the women's game with the national program. So it's really cool to have been able to watch her grow up and watch her win gold medals. And now we get to, hear her inspiration and all of her feedback and input on what she did in her journey, which is just so valuable for us. So she was definitely an inspiration for me. I was a big Wickenheiser fan, which is kind of cool because I had the opportunity to play with her also, 20 years later. So those are kind of inspirations from a childhood when it comes to the hockey world. But in sport, inspirational, like I mentioned before when we were off air, but I'm a huge Serena Williams fan. I love tennis, and I think I think everybody is for sure. But she's just been a role model of mine for sure since I was younger, and just so powerful. And I just love that. She's someone that inspires me as well every day.
Yeah, I think in the female hockey side, we're lucky that now we're being able to kind of be in a closer contact or working with kind of the females that we saw in 2002 and even more so. And having them now working with us, a part of our program, like Cassie and Jaina and Caro. There's so many that we looked up to when we were kids and just saw them that 1-2 times on TV. And now we're physically beside them, with them, learning from them. So that's pretty special. And then for me, I think on a side, not necessarily hockey, but more life and sports for sure, would be my sister. I think she was an older sister. I kind of always grew up following her path along the way, and I think just for me, she is my role model in the sense of being able to prioritize all the things that are important. So she loved sports and athletics, but she was also she's now a resident to be a pediatrician. So kind of being able to balance that academics, athletics, and then also having a social life and having friends. And I think those 3 realms, to me, she was able to kind of not master, but definitely, use it to the best of her abilities and make the most of all 3 of those important parts of her life. And so that's kind of those 3 things, or family, sports, academics, are all really important to me as well. And so to being able to balance those is something that I look up to her for sure.
But I want to jump on that because it is tough. And being a professional athlete, I think it's one of the toughest job because you need to balance a lot of things, So was there a piece of advice you received from your sister or from your role model, from anyone that helped you go through your day-to-day life, go through your day-to-day professional career? Was there a saying that helped you go through it?
I don't know about necessarily a saying. I think I definitely followed her footsteps. But I think the one thing she kind of, I guess it more would be a saying, or just like her idea was, it's not necessarily a sacrifice if you love something, it's more of a choice. And so as I was going through like maybe difficult times in college where it is tough to balance having fun, still social passing school, and excelling in your sport, I think that's one of the times where there's so much going on, and it's the hardest time to prioritize. Is even now it is difficult just because there is so much extra free time. But I think the idea of it not being a sacrifice and being a choice is really true and really real, in the sense that you're going to have to make tough decisions. You're going to have to give up things, but it doesn't seem so bad, or it seems actually beneficial when you look at it from the other side and see what you can get out of it versus what you're losing. And I think that's kind of how I try and picture, like, if I'm losing a night of fun with my friends because I have a game the next day, it's not, oh shoot, I'm missing out on this opportunity to go out with my friends. It's, I'm going to feel great and hopefully perform better tomorrow. And that's kind of the thing that she's always, I guess, lived by. And so something that I try and follow.
Yeah, I don't think I have a specific phrase either, but I know that, when you're growing up, you're always kind of pushed on time management.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of to echo what Stace said, you obviously have those different pillars of your life. And I think as you grow up, you realize the importance of time management is actually organizing your time management, what you're doing with your time, rather than just making sure you, A, get your work done, B, get to the rink, and C, make sure you get to bed before, 10 p.m. in high school, which is relatively impossible. So I think just to echo what Stace said, I think, like she said, when it's not a choice, when it is a choice, exactly. I think you really get to experience that as you grow older, because you realize that, it isn't hard work if you love what you're doing, So, I don't think I've really heard a specific phrase, but, just growing up with that model has been huge.
Were your families supportive of like this whole career in hockey? Were they scared for you? Because sometimes it's not that they weren't supportive, it's just that they're so afraid that you get hurt or you get like turned down or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think when you're growing up playing hockey, it's for fun. And it's so easy for your parents to want to be there and support you. And even in college, like your schooling is being paid for relatively, depends obviously where you're going. But up to when you graduate college, hockey isn't necessarily you're living at that. It's still a hobby or something that you really, really love and you're chasing a dream for, but it's not necessarily your career or something that's going to help you survive and put food on the table and have a place to live under. And so I think up to that point, it's really easy for your parents to be really, really supportive. And I think my parents, I've been very fortunate. I think they've been supportive since the very beginning up till this day. And but I do think after college, there is definitely that little bit of worry or scare in there saying like, it is a very unknown career in the sense that it can end any minute. You can get hurt and everything can kind of be done right there. You can get cut. You can, it's not necessarily like a job where you have that steady backbone of, hey, if I get fired, I can find a new job in that similar realm, or I can still get paid for a little bit of time kind of thing. So there is definitely a little bit more unknown. And I think my parents do have those fears or those worries, but I don't think that has ever kind of wavered or stopped their support. I think they've been all in since my dream has kind of been to go all in. So I think the support is there, but I do agree with the fact that I do think sometimes they're a little bit worried or just tentative to say like, hey, is everything okay? Are you still like really, really passionate? Do you still want this as bad as you do? And if you do, we'll be there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I remember when I was kind of deciding, and I have a younger brother as well, and when we were both deciding kind of what we were going to do with our hockey careers, I remember them just drilling, get your education, because you don't know when you could break your leg. That was my dad's favorite thing. You don't know when you could break your leg. And I'm like, that's awfully negative. But ironically, I tore my MCL at the Olympics, so it makes sense.
He jinxed you.
But now I realize, why he did that and why he pushed at it, and it's because exactly what Stace said. You never know. It's sport. It's an aggressive. It's a physical. It's a physical game. Yeah, and that's why because they want to make sure that you have those options and that sport is not, like we talked about before. Time management is not the only kind of focal point. You need that steady balance of other things in your life. So my parents were incredibly supportive growing up. I actually had to leave home when I was 15 because I'm from the East Coast. We didn't have a lot of females playing, so I kind of had to make that decision. Was I going to go for this national team dream or not? Because it wasn't a possibility. At the time, I remember they dropped me off at prep school, and my mom told me years later that they both didn't talk for like 15 hours because they were both so upset because I think none of us really wanted to close that door to separate and kind of go our own way, but we all knew that we had to just to support that dream. So ever since, that day, I think that was something that really catapulted their support as well, and I was able to really see that firsthand. But, like Stace, they've always been very supportive and very happy, enjoying, the excitement of the career.
Well, you know what? I want to piggyback on this question because our goal is to inspire people. And you guys were blessed to have the support of your parents, but there's a lot of kids who won't have this kind of support because there's parents who will be too scared, or they want their kids to pursue a certain type of career, more stable, it's safer. So what can you say to those young people who they don't have the support of their parents or their family, but they have a fire inside of them, a passion for hockey, either men or women, and especially women because they don't have any representation, so it's tougher for them. Mm-hmm. But what can you say to these young children, these young kids, so that they can still maybe pursue their passion or help them refocus or refocus their way of going through this career? How can you help them?
I think I get this question so many times, and it's from parents, and it is should I put all my eggs in one basket because I want my kid to go to the NHL and I want my kid to make the Olympic team, and so I can't believe that she wants to play soccer and she wants to dance. I remember a father came up to me and he was so frustrated because his daughter also wanted to dance, and I think he was really surprised by my answer because I said, bring her to dance. Yeah, don't bring her to my camp. Bring her to dance because it's so important for young kids, as they're growing up to do all these other things. Because there's a chance you grow up and you're 17 years old and you realize, hey, I actually really loved tennis and I never had an opportunity. I actually really love painting and art, and I really didn't because my parents just drilled me in hockey because they wanted me to make $1 billion playing in the NHL. And I think that that's something that a lot of parents kind of struggle with because they do kind of see the exposure that's happening on TV. What you see on television is also highlighted and social media. So people see that. They want that for their children because they want their best interest. But it's so important not to drill kids in one direction and to have that wholesome kind of experience of choosing your own passion. And that would be, I know that doesn't directly answer your question, but that's kind of the angle that I would go on when it comes to inspiring kids and kind of directing them to which way. It's don't go one way, go 5 different ways until you kind of need to make that decision like Stacey and I did around high school. But don't spread yourself too thin, but also don't be safe and just attack one dream. There's no limit on as many as you can have. So
yeah, I agree with that as well. And in terms of, we are both fortunate to have parents who support us. And I think it is difficult when a young kid doesn't have parents who support their passion, in the sense that, at the end of the day, hockey tends to be an expensive sport. And so if your parents can't afford it automatically, that kind of inhibits or takes away a little bit of that opportunity to show and experience your passion. So in terms of that, I don't necessarily know if I have an answer. I think that's sad and unfortunate, but there are ways to kind of still ignite that passion, whether it's road hockey, whether it's getting out and playing, ball hockey, other ways to show your parents or show whoever it is that you are really passionate about something. And I think, kind of like Jill said, like at the end of the day, there's always going to be people who don't support you, who think you're not good enough, who tell you no, who think you're wrong. Hopefully it isn't your parents. Hopefully they're the ones who are kind of showing that endless love and support. But even so, I think you do have to chase those passions regardless of who's telling you no. And I think we've all experienced it. Fortunately for us, it hasn't been our parents, but there's definitely been people along the way who have told us, whether it's coaches, whether it's significant hockey figures who've told us, hey, you're never going to make it. Hey, you shouldn't continue this path. Like it's not going to work out, or we get injured, or we go through these bumps. And there's been numerous times along the way. So whether it is your parents or whether it is anybody else, in my opinion, it would be to keep pushing through it. If that's your dream, if that's your passion, you can't let 1, 2, 3 hundreds of people tell you no. I think it's your decision. It's your passion. Obviously you do need funding. Obviously you do need some basic support. But in terms of chasing a passion, whatever it is, I think at some point you have to go with your gut and go with your heart, and not necessarily let all the people get into your head and kind of shout that no word at you.
And I love what you guys are saying, because it's the SISU, it's the living SISU. You have to live the SISU to be able to attain your dreams, and I love it. And I love the parallel you did with, maybe it won't be your parents who won't support you, but you will have some people who will try to block you, So 100%. You need to create, to have that resilience to go through everything until you decide, you know what, I think for me it's okay. But if it's your decision, I think it's the best. But if it's the decision you took because of someone told you no.
At the end of the day, it's your life. It's your, breaking news. We're in a global pandemic right now. So, athletes usually have their own routines. Put your masks, everyone. So usually athletes have their own routines and all. I'm guessing it was changed a lot with all that's happening in the past few months. How do you still get motivated to, wake up in the morning and do your day-to-day stuff?
I mean, that's a perfect question. I feel like that's the kicker right now. I think it's something obviously we're still struggling with. We're still going through it, and we're still learning. I think for me, this is something I've never experienced before. I mean, my second year out of college, I experienced the CWHL locking down. So that was the first or shutting down, and that was kind of the first experience of, hey, you're not on a team anymore. Hey, you don't have a team. You don't have that what you've had for now 22 years. All of a sudden, you don't have, and so that was kind of my first experience. And I think this kind of mimics that, echoes that in the sense of we don't have that team. We don't have that backbone to always rely on to support us, to pick us up. And I think it's been difficult in the sense of kind of getting up every single day and saying, hey, I'm going to go train and skate to not play for months and months and months. And not going to lie, it is difficult. But I think in Montreal, we've been pretty fortunate to be surrounded by, although it's not necessarily a team because we're not playing and we're not, we are still a group and a team in a sense. So to be surrounded by now 20-ish girls on a regular basis who are all in the same position and all trying to get up and do the same thing every single day, I think that's really helped. At the beginning, we weren't able to see each other. We were training in our apartments and our houses alone. And so that was a new experience for sure. But I don't know. I think knowing that everybody's in the same position, knowing that we're all trying to fight and get through this together brings a lot of that extra added motivation. And then to kind of put it into perspective, it's kind of hoping and thinking that there is a bright light, there is something to look forward to at the end of this. And so if we can kind of get better and kind of focus on different things and not necessarily, hey, maybe I get to spend 2 hours less on the ice, or I get a little bit less of this and that, and I don't get to play this weekend, but I can do other things that'll make me a better player, athlete, but also a better person too. And I think that's what I've kind of been trying to shift my focus on is there's so many other aspects of me as an athlete, me as a hockey player, but also me as a person that I can work on. And so if I can kind of figure out those during this time, maybe I will come out of this even better than I would have if we did have a regular season. And so that's kind of how I've been trying to motivate myself, I would say, but it definitely has been a lot more helpful lately now that we get to go to the rink and go to the gym with this group to kind of all help each other pick us up and put us back into a little bit more of a routine in place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as athletes, we live and we're fueled by routines. You know, you get up, you do, whatever you need to do before you go on the ice. You do your skate, your practice, your workout, you go home. It's pretty much the same thing. So, but you're always doing that, of course, with a goal in mind. So for me, motivating wise, it's been kind of making smaller goals for myself, whether it's in the gym or hockey or just like a little skill that I want to work on. Or like Stacey said, whether it's outside of the rink, whether it's, picking up new hobbies and doing other little things. It's been little goals for me that have kind of been, the motivation and kind of the push forward. Because we don't know when our next game is. Yeah. Someone said to us on the ice, I forget when it was, think of your last 10 goals. And I had to think like 2 years ago. I was like, oh my God. Like this is like a long time ago, but so there's no point I think in dwelling in the unknown right now, and I think for me it's just been setting those smaller goals and using those to kind of push me forward every day, because it's easy to burn out. It's easy to kind of get tired of just practicing and working out without that goal. We're fueled by a gold medal. At the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. We're fueled by a gold medal. We're fueled by inspiring young girls, and it's hard to do that when no one can see you and when you don't have the opportunity to do that. So I think just making those smaller goals every day has been key for me.
Have you found a new passion? Have you baked your own bread yet?
Yes. Really? Yes. Yay. All of them. You can pretty much name it.
You've tried everything.
Probably tried to bake it. I don't know how it turned out. Yeah, we tried.
Awesome.
But this is awesome. I mean, I think this pandemic, what it enables us to do is to discover ourselves a little bit more, and maybe it was a good thing. There's always a blessing in disguise, in everything. And I think this was a blessing. There's 24 hours in a day, and we spend so many hours working that we forget to work on ourselves. We work professionally, we work on our craft, but we forget to work on who we are and on ourselves. And I think with this pandemic, the fact that it shut everything down, it didn't shut us down. So we had no choice but to discover ourselves.
Refocus,
to refocus. And I love what you guys did. And I love what you said, Laura, that, well, you know what? Maybe at the end of the day, I will become a better athlete because I refocused myself a little bit more and I know myself a little bit more. So I love it.
Now would be the time for our halftime. We're about halftime through the podcast already. And we have this segment called the halftime segment. I'm sorry, it's lack of a better word. It's the halftime segment. So basically, it's questions about your personal GOATs. So greatest of all time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it could be short. You could talk about it for 4 minutes, whatever you'd like. Okay. Cool. So what would be your favorite book of all time?
Does it have to be a sports book?
No, it could be anything. It could be Harry Potter.
Okay, I just throughout COVID, I read American Dirt. Have you ever heard of it?
I never heard of it.
It's amazing. I highly recommend you giving it a read.
What is it about?
It's about a mom and a son who are trying to escape slavery.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very sad and a little bit but it's really, really well written and entertaining story, but very well done.
American Dirt.
Yeah.
That's good.
Noted.
That's really good. I'd say one of my favorites is Legacy. The story of the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team. I think that's probably one of my tops. Yeah. Aside from the sports books, though, I'm really into finance and like financial literature. So I just figured I'd say a sports book. But I love other stuff like that when it comes to like the business side of things. So I like that book as well because it kind of it talked a little bit about kind of sports business. So that was kind of cool. So
cool.
All right. Favorite sports movie, documentary, or TV series of all time?
Ooh.
We've had Mighty Ducks.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
I mean, Miracle is one of my favorites for sure. It's hard not to love Miracle.
Even as a Canadian.
Yeah, I know. It's just the whole story, the characters.
It's so good.
Yeah, Miracle would definitely be my favorite movie.
That was going to be.
But Mighty Ducks is a close second.
Ducks too.
On Netflix now, there's so many like cool documentaries for like The Last Dance, like for people who do not enjoy particularly basketball, but like we're so
good.
It's really, really amazing. A lot of controversies though, because Michael Jordan talked about a lot of players, and then players responded to Michael Jordan in a negative way. But it's amazingly well done.
I think one of the ones who like surprised me the most, I think it was on Netflix, Icarus or something. It was about
Icarus.
like the Icarus.
Yes.
About like the scandal of doping in Russia.
Yeah.
And that's what revealed basically the whole thing. I was like, is this like a movie or like, no, this is real life.
Even the new one that's on about the coaches. There's a new Netflix documentary and there's
about
like
gym coaches?
6 coaches.
Okay.
Really famous.
The
sporting.
Playbook. It's
That's it.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So well done.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Guys, you
watch
need
that.
to watch the
I haven't
Playbook.
heard of it.
Y'all cry. You're going to cry. You're going to it's amazing.
Oh, good. Okay.
Awesome.
Great coaches.
Yeah.
Your ultimate GOAT, greatest athlete of all time, in your opinion.
Well, Jill brought it up earlier. I was going to say Serena. I also, to be honest, when I was a little kid, I was obsessed with Lance Armstrong. I just thought he was like the best athlete ever. And then I was just crushed when all the news came out
Did
about
you have
him.
your
I had the fan. I just I followed him. I loved like watching his success, like how powerful of an athlete he was. I thought he was such a great role model.
Resilience.
Exactly. The resilience piece really stuck with me. And then everything that happened, it kind of crushed me, to be honest. I was pretty upset. Like, it was like your role model and the athlete you thought was this perfect, iconic athlete kind of slipped through the cracks, I guess. And it was a little bit disappointing, but...
Did you feel betrayed?
Yeah, I felt like I knew him, you know? But... then I definitely think on the female side of things, I think Serena is definitely one of my GOATs for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. I said her name like 4 times. So yeah, definitely Serena, and I am a huge Kobe fan. So that was devastating. But he's been just an icon, and his legacy is just unparalleled. So
he is amazing. Yeah, and you know what? Because I wanted to piggyback on something you said about Lance Armstrong and even Kobe, because Lance and Kobe had like dirt in their life. Kobe had this issue with the court and everything, and Lance, we know what happened. But I was reading, I was listening to a social professor. His name is Michael Eric Dyson. He's also a book writer, an author, yes. And he was doing a research about Martin Luther King Jr. And in his research, he revealed to everyone that Martin Luther King had a lot of sexual problem.
Really?
A lot of it. Yeah. And he said it in his book, and he was quoting, and he said, I'm giving you all these information not to bash on Martin Luther King, but to make him human, so that we can understand that, yes, we do have role models, but those people
are not superheroes.
Superhuman. Exactly. And for me, see Lance, he was resilient and everything. He made a mistake. And that, for me, showed me that he's human. And I think I have a better connection with Lance Armstrong, knowing that he makes mistake than before, because, okay, now he's attainable. I can be Lance Armstrong because I make mistake every day, you know? And it was the same thing for Kobe Bryant. I mean, whatever the problem he had or the athlete had, I mean, he's human. And so that's why for me, the fact that you said Lance Armstrong, it resonates with me because, he made mistakes, but who doesn't? You know, who doesn't? It does not remove the fact that he was resilient, that he worked hard, and he had issues, but he was human, you know?
I agree. I think it's so easy to put athletes on a pedestal that they can't necessarily attain. And it's like they make one wrong move. They drink publicly. Yeah. They smoke a cigar and it's caught on a picture. Oh my God. Whatever it is. I do completely agree that it's so unfair that athletes are held to this level and put on this pedestal and unable. And it happens in all different careers that are kind of very social media and
publicized.
Yeah, publicized, exactly. So I do agree. I do think it humanizes the athletes, and it does make it seem like you can connect with them more, 100%. And I think that is very true in both of those aspects. But I don't know, just as a kid, when I saw Lance, I was like, why did he have to cheat? And the cheating part is the part that crushed me, because he was an amazing athlete before he had to cheat. You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's the part that really crushed me. But I do agree. I do think like athletes and people are people, and they should be able to make mistakes too. It's just obviously the extent of the mistake is what can cost you.
Do you think they also should be made accountable for like what they do? Because a lot of people still defend athletes who did a lot of wrong things because they're like, but they're my hero. It's like so hard to like I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, and it's still hard for me to like admit that he was not like a pure, 100% good person. So like to see like when Kobe died, unfortunately, like rest in peace and all, I was thinking about like these rape allegations and all. And I was like, I can't just be like, just remember he maybe raped someone. It's like, no, you have to be sensitive, but also we can't erase completely what he did. Like, is there, we want him to be.
Media exposure is probably hard on, these big icons and in itself when you talk about, people being, reprimanded and, and punished for things that happen in their careers. But I feel like media is often looking for a story and, and when something like that happens, when someone does make mistakes and these, tragic things go on and, it's all over the media, I feel like that in itself is a teaching lesson, I'm sure, for, these different athletes or icons that have, gone through stuff. Like you said, everybody is human for sure. But I think that when it comes to, teaching or whatever you were talking about earlier, I think, if you're exposed all over the media and that's going to be the headline news, that's, that's a teaching method in itself, I'd say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's also important that sometimes the media does blow these things up, and sometimes the evidence is not necessarily there either. And so I think they are looking for stories, or there's different parts, and everybody does make mistakes, and it's sometimes they should get washed under the table, or they should be not necessarily. Maybe they didn't actually they're not actually as true as everybody thinks they are. Nobody knows always the double side of the story, or so I do think you have to kind of take both sides and take it for granted sometimes, because it is difficult. You don't know whose side are you on. We don't know that athlete in particular. We don't know their story. We don't know the other person's story. And I think it's very difficult to sometimes just judge a book by its cover or a story by the headlines or whatever it may seem. So I'm kind of speaking out of both sides because I now forget Lance as my goat. But I mean, there was concrete evidence there, so I think it is a little bit different. But we don't know the other stuff that was going on in his life. We don't know his side of the story, or we do a little from the media.
He did that because all the other cyclists did it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it, and I do think it's just unfortunate that sometimes it's so reprimanded or pointed out in the media because they are public figures. And I think, just like you said, we all do make a lot of mistakes. It's just unfortunately hear about it a lot more.
That's why I love LeBron James. He always controls his narrative. He understands the media game so well. That's why, for me, he's my GOAT. But
he's everyone's GOAT.
That's a good GOAT.
Last GOAT question. Greatest comeback or greatest sports performance that you've witnessed or that you've seen when you were a child, or it could be in your sport, it could be in another sport, like a memorable moment in sports.
Well, I think people are going to think I'm biased from this answer, but I'm going to say that the girls in 2014, the national team, that was at the Olympics. That was just...
I was screaming at my team. That was...
I swear. Oh my God. When I hit the post, when it went in again, it was just... that was just a lot of emotions, I think, for every Canadian. And I think everybody felt everyone's excitement across the country. That was pretty cool.
Did you think it was over? I was like... It's so unfortunate. It's so sad.
You know what? I did in part because, obviously you're down 2, there's a minute left or whatever, but we've been taught on so many levels that it doesn't end until the final buzzer. So a little piece of me didn't think it was over. And I had that faith. And I think that, having that drilled into our systems since such a young age, you don't stop until the buzzer ends. Like the amount of times I've heard that growing up. And I mean, that was just the definition of the example of that sentence. I think there was a little part, but fortunately that little part was true.
Well, yeah.
Especially when it hit the post, then it was like that feeling. It's like, they're going to win.
Oh my God, they're going to win.
I think that's what changed it all.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, it's like, we think it's over. Oh, really? Enters Marie-Philippe Poulin. I'm still there.
Twice.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just thinking about it, I have chills.
That would be mine too, for sure. And then also the golden goal. I think it's Sid's goal there. It wasn't even the nicest goal. It's just like one that... It's in Vancouver,
in
Canada. The city, the country just completely erupted from that goal, calling it the golden goal. I think that's one that, I don't know, it's going to stick with me too.
Have you heard there was a video that was on YouTube right after that, which was like all the descriptions of that goal in like all the languages, because it's the Olympics, right? So there's like reporters from all over the world. Oh my, like in Spanish, it was like goal. This is so weird.
Just like a soccer game.
It was amazing. Or like in France, like with like that accent, it was crazy. Like people were yelling and like Korean media were like going crazy. Like,
but that's why I love sports so much, because it's so much more than the sports. Exactly. It's, it brings everyone together from Korean. Who thinks Korean watches hockey and then they're like, I love sports for these kind of moments, for comebacks. And I think in the team, when you have comebacks, it strengthens you forever. I mean, when you live the comeback, when you live the comeback together, I mean, you just created sisters forever. And anything can happen and you will always remember.
Yeah, you'll never forget.
Remember that 2014. Yeah. Okay, we have, I know we have something going on, but remember 2014? Okay, let's put it aside. It always stays with you. So, I love sports so much for these moments.
Yeah, that was an amazing goal. What's the biggest challenge that you faced in your professional or personal life, and how did you get through it?
I think I've had a few for sure, but if I was going to pick kind of one, and I briefly said it earlier in a joking manner, and I can joke about it now because it's been a couple of years, but I kind of chose the hockey route. I loved hockey. That I knew it was kind of be my passion and kind of where I wanted to go, but a big part of the reason I also went that angle was because when I was playing soccer, there's so many injuries with knees, torn MCLs, torn ACLs, and I knew if I did both, if I played soccer, the chances of me doing something, to my knees or injury was going to hurt my hockey career. And ironically, I gave up soccer and tore my MCL in the semifinal game of the Olympics. So I think that for me, I heard a pop in the semifinals, and the Olympics were going well for us. We were up in the semis, and it was looking like we were going to the gold medal game. And I was having a great time and really gelling with my line mates and my teammates. And then I heard that pop behind the net, and I was just so. I knew something was not attached below the knee, but I also knew that there was just nothing that was going to keep me out of this next day, because I had trained for 26 years to play 60 minutes, and I had 30 hours to heal a torn MCL. So I think that dealing with that and being told, by my GM and by my coach, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to play. And I'm a pretty reserved person. I don't really, I'm not very aggressive, but that was just not a no I was going to take. Except. And I was vocal about that. And I somehow, I don't know how, but I was able to weasel my way, with a brace, and we snapped my shin pad and tied a hockey lace around it and put a sock on it. And I was able to go and just be with my teammates for that gold medal game. And that was all I wanted to do. I didn't even care how much I got on the ice. I just really wanted to be there.
I'll cry about the pain later.
It was just, and the funny thing is I didn't feel pain, and they didn't believe me, but I think the mix of adrenaline and just the amount of tape on my leg, and that's what I said to someone, and was
wanting
adrenaline,
so bad.
Adrenaline and tape, and I just was so excited to be there. And no, I don't think they did believe me when I said it didn't hurt, but it genuinely I didn't feel it, because I was so excited.
Wow.
But that was tough, because that was a lot of no's, and a big curveball in arguably the most important 60 minutes of my life, for sure.
And how long did it take for your knee to come back?
The Olympics were over after.
Can't take 4 years. I don't mind.
Because last 4 years.
Ice cold beers helped after that. So. It was just a regular recovery after that, but it was also post-Olympics, so you give yourself a little break, and you can be a little more human for a bit. So it's healed back to normal now, but that was definitely something that's grown me as an athlete.
Mine is very similar. It's an injury as well. I think for me, my career generally tended to seem like it was going in a pretty good linear direction. I started kind of on the under 18 team for 2 years. Then I made the transition to the under 22 team when I went to college, and I was really happy with kind of how things were going. But throughout college, I was never able to kind of make that jump to the senior team. I couldn't crack that national team roster, which is obviously what I was dreaming and wanted to be a part of. That was my goal. And so 4 consecutive years, I went to the national team camp, and I was released, and I was cut. And I was still placed back onto the under 22 team. And so I was starting to kind of like get closer to my graduation and being like, oh boy, am I ever going to make that jump? Am I ever going to kind of reach that next level? And then in my senior game, so I was still on the under 22 team at this point, and on my last game in college, I went sliding kind of head first into the boards, and luckily I got my hands up, but I crushed both my wrists. Like pretty significantly too. I had a full arm cast on my left and a pretty serious cast on my right, but they pulled my bones back into place, and I didn't have to have surgery. So I just had a really long kind of recovery in these casts. So it was quite the experience. Like I couldn't eat, I couldn't change, I couldn't shower, I couldn't do anything. I was like literally so hopeless. And so at this point in my career, I was kind of like, this is it. Like I'm now done my college hockey, which everybody says is that like kind of, I don't know, pinnacle or like your prime, I guess. I hadn't made the senior team yet. I'm like, how am I going to make it now? I have no wrist. I have no strength. And the Olympics is 2 years away kind of thing. So I was pretty crushed. I was in a pretty negative, bad place. And fortunately, I was surrounded by an amazing like support staff at Dartmouth, friends. My family stayed with me to help me live, to be honest, for a little. And I kind of had that point where it was like, this could be the turning point, and I had to make a decision. Did I want to kind of pack it in and say like, hey, I've had an amazing career, I've seen a lot of places, I've experienced a lot of things, or do I want to push that one more time and hopefully have the chance to make kind of that next level, reach that next step of making the national team? And so fortunately, I don't know how it happened, I don't know how it worked out, but not even 12 months after I broke my wrist, I made the national team for the very first time. And so it kind of was a blessing in disguise. Like you mentioned before, it was like I had the opportunity to somehow mentally change my outlook and say, hey, this is my last shot. I'm going to put every single thing I have into it and hope for the best. And I like recovered, and I literally, my wrists probably were stronger than they were beforehand. And honestly, it wasn't even my wrist. It was so many other things. It was my mental attitude, how I was going to make the team. I had to change. And and that was the turning point in my career that forced me to change and forced me to kind of make that next jump to that level. And so that was the turning point. That was probably my most significant adversity that I faced. And it's one of the big reasons I'm here today, to be honest.
No, I think those challenges that we live in life, it defines us as human. The way we're going to face those challenges will create our identity for the rest of our lives. And we usually talk about injuries of athletes really from a distance point of view. You know, when they're reported in the news, this athlete broke his legs or broke his knee or whatever. But
4 months recovery.
Yeah, exactly. 4 months and then next news. But I think injuries for an athlete is huge. And we don't talk about the mental aspect of having an injury.
Because you can't control it. It's basically, so you had to work on all the stuff that you could control, like your mental state. And
it's tough. And I mean, your body is your work. I mean, you work with your bodies. You know me, if I'm injured, okay, it's okay. I can still go to teach my kids, you know. I don't mind because I'm a teacher, by the way. But so I can I can still go teach to the kids if I hurt my knee or whatever. But you guys can't work, so you can't bring money to the table necessarily. Let's say you have a contract to sign. So the mental it's tough. It's tough for an athlete, and we don't talk about it.
I agree. 4 months off is just not 4 months off. There's so much more to it that a lot of people don't understand or see. And it's like, oh, it's just a bruised knee. Oh, it's just a broken arm. Like, I've had that before. And it's like, when it's your living, when it's your life, when it's your dream, I think it changes the whole idea of it. And it's no longer, oh, just an injury. It's like, my dream could be over. My career could be over. And it's a totally different view when you see it from that perspective, just versus just, oh, that person's injured, or, oh, they just have a broken thumb, or however small the injury seems. The fact that you have to stay out, take time off, and it's costing you your ability to perform, your ability to do what you love, I think it's more significant than a lot of people see it.
So the name of our community is Living SISU, right? And we mentioned the word SISU a lot. SISU is a Finnish word that means like resilience, grit, determination, what else? Courage, perseverance. Is there like one of these words that sticks more, like that represents you or that you can relate to a little more?
Yeah, I mean, I think both the stories that we just said too are definitely falling under this word umbrella, and that's resilience. I think that's one of my favorite words for sure, and I think that's a word that has really propelled me to where I am today for sure. It's just getting through stuff, finding a way to get through stuff. COVID, find a way to get through stuff. You know, injuries. You know, find a way to come out on top, and being resilient in tough times, I think is huge and says a lot about you as an athlete and your character. So that would definitely be the word for me that would resonate.
Me too, 100%. I think I recently actually just tweaked my wrist again, kind of out of the blue, and I had a conversation with our mental coach with our team, I guess, and I said, "Why me again? Like, why does this have to happen again?" And she was like, you can't ask that question. You can't ask why. It's like, you just have to do it again. Be resilient again. You know you can do it. You know you've been through this before. And she said it comes down to being resilient and shaping who you are and how you're going to get through it. And it's all your opinion and how you look at it. And there's so many other things that you can work on, like I said before, that aren't necessarily kind of using your wrist or all of that kind of stuff. And so I completely agree and resonate with the resiliency part. And there's so many times in your career, it's like I said, I thought my path was this nice linear line, and it was completely far from that. And it's always going to be. It's never going to be this nice linear path to success. There's going to be so many bumps and roadblocks and turns and so much nonsense along the way, but being okay with that, realizing it, accepting it, kind of spinning it to your perspective and making it seem okay. I think that's like huge in the term resiliency. And I completely agree with Jill. That's what resonates with me the most.
So I think I already know your answer to the next question, but in your opinion, what is the best quality to have as an athlete? Is it resilience? Or do you have another quality that pop in your mind? But do you think if you want to be successful in a professional career as an athlete, you need to be resilient, or there's something else?
Yeah. Like, what does Serena have?
Yeah, I think, I definitely think she's resilient. I think every athlete has to be resilient in some sense of the word. I don't think any person, whether it's an athlete or just any person in life, I think you're always going to experience some sort of adversity. Obviously, some people face it more. Some people face it more significantly. But I do think resilience is extremely, extremely key in sports. But I think with resiliency, there has to be that passion and there has to be that dream. And I think the resiliency part only comes hand in hand with those two words, because if you're extremely passionate and following that dream, then it's a lot easier to get back up and keep going forward. And it's a lot easier to be resilient and fight through that bump or that bruise or that cut or that...
when you do have that.
Exactly. So I think for me, obviously resilience is key. And I think every athlete at the top of their game has resilient qualities, but I think it stems from their passion for the sport in the first place. The fact that they want to be there, they don't see it as a job, they see it as their passion, their goal, their dream. And I think for me, I think every athlete, especially the GOATs, the ones at the top of their game, they're extremely, extremely passionate about what they do, and they want to be the very best at it because of their passion for it.
I think that's a great answer. Copy paste. I think that's a great answer. I think something about, when you look at some of the best athletes in the world, and I think the words that describe them and the words that bring them to the next level are the words that push them forward. Resilient, like Stacey said, passionate, determined, hungry, driven, all the words that bring you from one place to the next. And I think if you really look at the GOATs and not even just like the up and coming athletes, anyone who really kind of lives by the words that can bring them through, adversity, like Stacey said, but also to the next level. How can I be better? How can I be a better athlete, person, teammate? It's the people that can really challenge themselves, under that umbrella of words and bring them to the next level that ultimately become the GOATs, whether that's, you're the best, tennis player, basketball player, football player, hockey player in the world, or, you're getting to the level that you want to be, you're getting your college degree, you're making an Olympic team, you're doing whatever. Whatever your goal is, if you fall under those words, I think, to bring yourself to that level, you're your own GOAT, right? I think so.
You're your own GOAT. I love that. What legacy do you want to leave behind? Like once you're gone, what do you want people to remember about you? That's a very deep question.
Yeah, that's a deep one.
That is tough.
Do you have an answer? I kind of funny. I can kind of start it. I think, for me, when it comes to legacy, I think this is a word, that I've really tried to live by, especially as I've kind of grown in my career and gone back to my hometown, and seeing these young, athletes. And I say athletes because it's not just little girls anymore. It's little boys, little girls. It's anyone who's looking up to you, as an idol, as a role model. And I think for me, legacy is when I see these little ones, in the rink or on the field doing whatever they're doing, and they feel inspired because of something that I did. That's the legacy. That's the legacy that I want to leave is feeling kids inspired to do what we want to do. When I go home, I have a hockey school with one of my teammates, and one of the first things I say when I'm talking to the kids is, "Listen, I was in your seat not long ago," and it seems so corny, but it's true. We were just little girls who wanted to make the Olympic team, who wanted to wear the Canadian maple leaf, and and we did what we needed to do to get there. But we didn't have superpowers, but we did have resiliency. We were passionate, and those are superpowers in itself. But those are superpowers that everybody has. So when it comes to legacy, I think it's just inspiring that generation to believe that they can do it.
To inspire.
Yeah. I love that. I guess to go off of a different way, I guess kind of I said the two words a lot, but resiliency and passion would be the words that I would want to leave behind. I think one of the quotes that is my favorite quote, but also one that I kind of live by is, good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the tree. At Dartmouth, the kind of symbol of Dartmouth, it's so corny, but it's a lone pine, so it's a tree. And so when I was there and all this stuff, when I was getting cut from the national team, when I injured my wrists, that's kind of what I lived by, and that's kind of what my friends, my family always reminded me of. And so I think in terms of the legacy I would want to leave behind when I'm not playing, it would be that. It would be that, just like Jill said, is that we were those little girls. And those little girls are going to go through some negative things. They're going to get cut from their bantam team. They're going to get injured here or there. And if they still dream and want to be just like us, we had that dream that we want to be on the Olympic team. If they have that dream, they're passionate about it, then they have to be okay with taking those bumps, taking those bruises, getting injured and getting back up. And if I could show that to them, if I could show that, hey, I had a dream, I was a normal kid just like Jill and me were sitting in their seats. If I could show that, hey, I can get taken down, I can get bumped, I can get kind of blown over by the wind too. But look, hey, I made it, and so can you. And I think that would be the legacy that I would want to leave behind.
Amazing.
It is
amazing.
I'm inspired.
Yeah,
I'm going.
I'm putting on skates, figure skates.
No, not figure skates.
Figure skates.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
girls.
go ahead.
Honestly, thank you so much for being here. That's unfortunately all the time we have, but I want to say thank you. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people today.
Yep.
Maybe I ask you if we want to follow you guys, if we want to know where you're at, where can we follow you on social media?
I'll be doing this.
Yeah,
right
definitely. Twitter, Instagram. Generally, I think both my handles are Laura Stacey 7. 7's my favorite number, and that's my full name. So pretty easy to follow me.
Yeah. Mine's just Jill.Saulnier. So we're pretty We're pretty easy.
The camera can cap this. What I'm doing is, so I'm going on search.
Good.
And then you're Laura Stacey and you'll find
Laura Stacey 7.
Seven.
And also, I want to tell people who are watching us or listening to us that there's this short documentary on YouTube that's called the Dream Gap.
Yeah.
That's about that explains what you guys are doing right now with I want to get it right. The Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, PWHPA. That's a hard thing to say. What's the league? Well, the future league trying to install what you guys are doing in your spare time. And we really wish you the best of luck. That's a really interesting thing to go watch to understand more about what you guys are doing. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode, which was our first one in English. We'll be mixing it up with French and English, diversifying our guests and hosts as well. Thanks for tuning in. Before we go, follow Living SISU on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And lastly, visit our website, livingsisu.com, to get started with the community for free. Hope everybody felt inspiration somewhere along the way today, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one. Ciao.